Why would my grandpa leave me a locked room and warn me never to open it? My grandpa left me something in his will, a locked room in his old house. He warned me never to open it, but I did, and I wish I hadn't. I don't know how to explain it. Even now, after everything, it still doesn't feel real. When someone dies, you expect closure, some kind of finality. But when we buried my grandpa, it didn't feel like an ending. It felt like something had been left unfinished, like a door had been left open somewhere, one that wasn't supposed to be. The funeral was small, a quiet service in a small-town cemetery. Family members I hadn't seen in years stood around in dark coats, saying things they probably didn't mean. I didn't say much, I just listened. The priest spoke, people nodded, and someone cried. I kept waiting for something to hit me, for the weight of it all to sink in, but it didn't. Not yet. Afterward, we went back to my aunt's house for a small gathering. Everyone was sharing stories about him, about how he never missed Sunday dinner, how he could fix anything with just a roll of duct tape and a screwdriver, how he never, not once, talked about his past. No one ever thought that was strange. He was just private. That's what we told ourselves. Private. Then the lawyer called me over. I wasn't expecting anything big. Maybe some old tools, a watch, something sentimental. But when I sat down across from him, he slid a folder toward me and said, "Your grandfather left you the house." The sound of paper rustling. I stared at the documents, then back at him. "The whole house?" "Yes," he nodded. "The whole house. And there's one request." He turned a page, tapped his finger on a line written in shaky, uneven handwriting. My grandpa's handwriting. "Do not open the locked room on the second floor." I frowned. That was it. No reason, no details, just a warning. "What's in the room?" I asked. The lawyer exhaled through his nose. "I don't know. He never told me, but he was very clear about it." I wanted to ask more, but something in his expression told me it was pointless. He didn't have answers, or if he did, he wasn't going to give them to me. The next day, I drove out to the house. It was the first time I'd been back in years. I remembered it being big when I was little, but standing in front of it now, it wasn't really big at all. Just old. The paint was peeling in places, the porch sagged slightly in the middle, and the windows on the second floor stared down like empty eyes. It looked tired. I stood at the front door for a long time before unlocking it. The inside smelled the same, like dust and wood and something faintly sweet, like old pipe smoke. I walked through the rooms slowly, running my hand over the familiar furniture, the worn-out armrests of his favorite chair. Everything was just as he'd left it. It almost felt like he was still there, like I'd turn a corner and see him standing in the kitchen stirring a cup of coffee. But there was one thing that was different, something I'd never really noticed before. The door. At the end of the upstairs hallway, past the room I used to sleep in as a kid, there was a door I barely remembered. I must have seen it 100 times growing up, but I never thought about it. Now, I couldn't stop staring at it. It wasn't like the other doors in the house. The others were all light-colored wood, simple, plain. But this one was different. It was darker, heavier, almost black. The handle was brass, old and worn, and just below it was an iron lock. The kind you don't see anymore. The kind made to keep things out, or maybe to keep things in. I walked closer without really thinking about it. My shoes made the floor creak under me, the sound stretching out into the empty house. I reached out and touched the door. The wood was cold, too cold. I bent down, looking at the keyhole. It was wide, wider than it should have been, like an open eye staring back at me. I stepped back. I don't know why, but I suddenly felt like I was being watched, like something on the other side of that door was aware of me, waiting. A faint knocking sound, slow and steady. That first night in the house, I told myself I wouldn't think about it. I had other things to deal with. Cleaning, sorting through Grandpa's things, figuring out what to do next. But as the night stretched on and the house settled into silence, my thoughts kept drifting back to that door. And then I heard it. A sound. Soft at first, faint, A slow, steady tapping. I held my breath and listened. It was coming from upstairs, from behind that door. I tried to ignore it. The sound, the tapping. I told myself it was the house settling the way old places do. Wood shifts, pipes groan, wind finds ways through cracks. But deep down, I knew it wasn't any of those things. Houses don't tap in steady, deliberate rhythms, and they don't stop the moment you hold your breath and listen. The next day, I went about my routine. I unpacked, I cleaned. I sorted through my grandpa's things. The house was cluttered with memories, his fishing gear, stacks of old newspapers, a collection of keys with no labels. I kept busy. I didn't look at the door at the end of the hall, didn't even glance in its direction. But the feeling was there, like a weight pressing on my chest. That night I told myself I'd sleep early. Just shut my eyes and push everything out of my mind, but the house had other plans. The silence stretches for a beat too long. Around midnight I woke up. At first I wasn't sure why. The room was dark, the air still. I stared up at the ceiling listening, and then I heard it. A slow, scraping sound, not the tapping from before, something else. Scratching. It was coming from upstairs, from behind the locked door. I sat up in bed, heart hammering in my chest. My breath felt too loud, too heavy. I held it just for a second, just to be sure I wasn't imagining it. But the sound didn't stop. It was light at first, faint, then harder, like nails dragging across wood. A slow, dragging scrape, then a pause, then again. I wanted to tell myself it was a rat, a raccoon, something small, something explainable. But it didn't sound like an animal. It sounded patient. I didn't move. I just sat there, staring at the open doorway of my bedroom, listening. The scratching continued for maybe a minute. Then it stopped. Completely. Like it knew I was awake. I didn't sleep much after that. The next morning, something felt different. The house was quiet, too quiet. No birds outside, no creak of the floorboards when I walked. Just a stillness that made my skin crawl. I told myself I was being stupid, that I was letting my mind play tricks on me. But when I stepped into the hallway and glanced toward the locked door, something made my stomach drop. The lock. It looked different. Worn. The metal was scratched. The keyhole. Yesterday it had been smooth, untouched. Now it looked rough, like someone had been trying to open it from the inside. I stepped closer, heart pounding in my ears. The brass handle had marks on it. Deep, jagged ones. I reached out without thinking, running my fingers over the grooves. They weren't fresh, but they weren't old either, like someone had been at that door for a long, long time. I stepped back. This wasn't my problem, I told myself. It was just an old door. Maybe my grandpa had done it years ago. Maybe there was nothing behind that door but dust and forgotten things, but my hands wouldn't stop shaking. And the air, it was colder here. Right in front of the door, like the temperature dropped the moment I got too close. I left the hallway. I didn't look back. But that night, things got worse. I forced myself to sleep early again. I locked my bedroom door. I told myself I wouldn't listen. At first it was quiet. Then sometime past midnight the scratching started again. But this time, it wasn't alone. Something else was there, breathing. Slow, shallow breaths, just beyond the door. I pulled the covers up to my chin, squeezing my eyes shut like a child afraid of the dark. But I wasn't a child, and this wasn't my imagination. I wanted to leave, pack my things and drive away. But the house was my responsibility now, and part of me, the part I wish I had ignored, needed to know what was behind that door. I needed to know what my grandpa had been hiding. A single, deliberate knock echoes in the silence. I should have left. I should have listened to the will. But curiosity is a dangerous thing. And the next day, I made the worst mistake of my life. I should have left it alone. I should have ignored the sounds, the cold air, the scratches on the lock. I should have packed my bags, locked the front door, and never looked back. But I didn't. Because curiosity is louder than fear. And when something doesn't make sense, the human brain wants to fix it, even when it shouldn't. The next morning, I made up my mind. I was going to open that door. I don't know what I expected to find. Maybe nothing. Maybe something that would put all my fears to rest. A bunch of junk, some forgotten furniture, maybe a dead rat scratching inside the walls. But deep down, I knew. I knew it wasn't going to be that simple. I started searching the house for the key. My grandpa had a habit of keeping things locked away. Drawers, cabinets, even his damn fridge had a padlock on it when I was a kid. I went through his desk first, rifling through papers, bills, old photographs, then the nightstand in his bedroom, then the toolbox in the shed. Nothing. For a second, I considered breaking the lock, but that didn't feel right. It felt like the kind of door that needed to be opened the right way, like forcing it would make things worse. Then I remembered something. When I was a kid, my grandpa always had this one drawer in his dresser that he kept locked. I used to ask him what was inside, and he'd just chuckle and say, "Some things aren't meant to be touched, boy." Back then, I thought it was money, maybe a gun. But now, standing in his empty bedroom, staring at that same old dresser, I had a feeling it was something else. I pulled the drawer open. At first, it just looked like junk. A few rusty coins, an old pocket watch, a folded-up letter with handwriting too faded to read. But at the very back, under a stack of yellowed papers, I found it. The key. The faint sound of breathing. It was small, old, and heavier than it should have been, cold to the touch, like it had been sitting in ice. I held it in my palm for a long time. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. This was it. No more guessing. No more wondering. I had the answer in my hand. I should have left it where I found it. But I didn't. I waited until nightfall. I don't know why. Maybe I was trying to scare myself out of it. Maybe I thought if I waited long enough, something would happen to stop me. A phone call, a blackout, an excuse. Nothing did. At midnight, I stepped into the hallway, key in hand. The air felt different, heavier, the kind of thick, pressing stillness that makes you feel like you're underwater. I walked toward the door. Each step felt slower, like something was pulling at me, trying to keep me from moving forward. By the time I reached the door, my hands were shaking. I pressed my palm against the wood. It was ice cold. The scratches on the lock were even clearer up close. Deep, uneven grooves, not made by tools, made by hands. Something had been trapped in there, and it had tried to get out. I swallowed hard, gripping the key so tight my knuckles turned white. Then I pushed it into the lock. A sharp metallic click. For a second, nothing happened. Then, the door moved. Not on its own. I was pushing it, but it felt wrong. Like I wasn't supposed to. Like the air itself was trying to hold it shut. I turned the handle, and the door swung open. Then a faint creak as the door drifts inward. It was dark inside. Too dark. Even with the hallway light spilling in, the room seemed to swallow it. Like the darkness inside was thicker than normal shadows. I reached for the light switch, flicked it on. Nothing. The bulb was dead. I stood there for a long time, just staring into the blackness. My breath felt too loud, too heavy. Then slowly my eyes started to adjust. And that's when I saw it. There was something in the corner. At first I thought it was just a pile of blankets, maybe an old sheet draped over furniture, but as I stared, the shape became clearer. It wasn't blankets. It was a chair, and someone was sitting in it. I don't remember moving. I don't remember stepping backward or how I ended up pressed against the hallway wall, my hands gripping the doorframe so tight my fingers hurt. But I do remember the smell. Rot. Old, thick, like something had been locked in there for a long, long time. My grandpa had left this house to me, but he had left that room to whatever was inside it. The sound of slow, deliberate breathing. And now, the door was open. The room was small. Too small. I don't know why I noticed that first, but I did. The walls felt closer than they should have been, like the space had been shrinking while no one was looking. I didn't step inside right away. I just stood in the doorway, staring. There wasn't much in there, just a wooden chair in the center of the room. No dust, no cobwebs, like someone had been in there, recently. The smell was thick, stale, damp, and something else, something sour. It clung to the back of my throat. The hallway light barely reached past the door, so I pulled out my phone and turned on the flashlight. The soft hum of a phone light clicking on. And that's when I saw them, the photos. They were scattered across the floor, old, curled at the edges. Some were yellowed, others almost black with age. I bent down, picked one up. It was my grandpa. He looked young, maybe in his 30s, standing outside this same house, smiling at the camera. But behind him, there was something else. A shadow, tall, unclear, just standing there right over his shoulder. I grabbed another photo. Same thing, different place. My grandpa sitting on the porch, a drink in his hand, and behind him in the window, that same shadow. No details, no face, just there. I flipped through them fast, my hands shaking, every single photo, no matter where he was, no matter how old he looked. It was always there, watching. I felt it before I heard it. A shift in the air, like something in the room had just taken a breath. My skin went cold. The flashlight flickered. And then, something creaked. The chair. The sound of slow wooden creaking. I couldn't move. It wasn't just fear. It was something else, something deeper. My body felt like it wasn't mine anymore. My breath stuck in my throat. The chair creaked again. And then, the smell changed. It got worse, stronger, like something old had just been disturbed. That's when I felt it. Not saw, felt. Something standing behind me. I turned my head, just a little, enough to see. And for the first time I wished I had listened to my grandpa. Because there, in the reflection of my phone screen, was a shape. Tall, black, standing in the doorway. A sharp inhale. It wasn't my shadow. I wanted to turn around. I couldn't. I wanted to run. My legs wouldn't move. Something was behind me, I knew that. I felt it, I saw it. But knowing and believing are two different things. I kept telling myself I was imagining it, that my mind was twisting shadows, turning old fears into something worse, that if I just turned around I'd see nothing, that it was all in my head. But my body knew the truth, and it was screaming at me not to look. Then I saw the diary. It was on the floor, just past the chair, small, worn, like it had been there for years. I don't know why I moved toward it. Maybe because it was the only thing in that room that felt real, tangible, something I could hold. I forced my feet forward, just one step. The floor creaked under my weight. Something shifted behind me. The chair moved, the faintest sound of wood scraping against the floor. My breath caught in my throat, but I didn't stop. I bent down, grabbed the diary, and flipped it open with shaking fingers. My grandpa's handwriting, jagged, uneven, rushed. I skimmed through the pages, my eyes darting from line to line. At first it was normal. Notes, reminders, short journal entries about his day. Then the handwriting changed. It got messier, desperate, like someone had been writing too fast, too frantic to keep the letters neat. I read the words out loud before I could stop myself. If you see this, it's too late. My stomach dropped. I turned the page. The next sentence was underlined so hard the paper had torn. He knows you're here. The door slammed shut. A loud, sudden bang. The sound was like a gunshot. My ears rang, my heart stopped, and in the ringing silence that followed, I heard it. A whisper, right next to my ear. You shouldn't have opened it. I dropped the diary. I spun around so fast I nearly fell. There was nothing there. But the chair was facing me now. It hadn't been before. And the air was thick with something I couldn't see. The whisper hadn't come from behind me. It had come from everywhere. From the walls, the floor, the air itself. I reached for the door. My fingers fumbled against the knob. It wouldn't turn. Locked. I slammed my fist against it. Nothing. My breathing was too fast now, too shallow. My head was spinning. Then I heard it again. Not a whisper this time. A sound. A dragging sound. Like something heavy being pulled across the floor. from inside the room. I wasn't alone in there, and whatever was with me wasn't staying in the shadows anymore. The light vanished, not dimmed, not flickered. It was just gone. 1 second, my phone flashlight was cutting through the dark. The next, nothing. Like someone had snatched it out of my hand, but my phone was still there, still on. The screen was glowing, but it wasn't lighting anything, like the darkness had swallowed it whole. And that's when I knew I wasn't standing in an empty room anymore. A shaky, whispering to himself, "Move, move, move, move." I turned, fast. My hands shot out, fumbling through the black for the door. I knew where it was. I had just been there. It was only a few feet away. But my fingers met nothing. Just air. Like the walls had shifted. Like the door had disappeared. My breath came out in short, sharp gasps. The floor felt uneven beneath me. Or maybe my legs were shaking. I couldn't tell anymore. Then in the silence I heard it. A shuffle, slow, purposeful. From the corner. And then another sound. Breathing. Deep, ragged, not mine. I wasn't alone. Something was in here with me, and it was moving. The air got colder, my skin prickled, my ears rang. I squeezed my eyes shut, trying to block out the dark, trying to block out everything. Then, a whisper, closer than before. "It's your turn now." I ran, blind, hands stretched out, body stumbling forward, slamming into walls that weren't where they should have been. The floor felt wrong, like it was tilting, like it wasn't a floor at all. A brush of something cold against my arm, my shoulder, my back. I wasn't just running. I was being grabbed. Something wrapped around my wrist, tight like bone, like fingers. I yanked away, but it held on. The grip was freezing, it burned. And then, my foot hit something solid. A door. The door. I clawed at it, my fingers slipping over the wood. I found the knob, twisted, yanked. It didn't move. Something yanked me back, hard. I screamed. I don't even know if it came out. The air was thick, heavy, like I was underwater, like the sound was trapped in my throat. My hand slammed against the door, fumbling, slipping. Then, it opened. Not all the way, just enough. I threw myself through it. Hit the floor outside, my body slamming against the hallway carpet. And the moment I was out, the door slammed shut behind me. Hard enough to shake the walls. I started gasping for air. I scrambled back, kicked myself away from the door. The house was silent. Too silent. I sucked in a breath, the taste of dust thick in my throat. My phone was still in my hand. The light was back on. The hallway was empty, normal, like nothing had just happened. I looked down at my wrist. There were bruises, dark, finger-shaped, like something had held me, like something had tried to pull me back in. I never opened that door again. But sometimes, late at night, I hear it. A slow creak, the sound of wood moving, like a chair, turning to face the door. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. I just sat in my car, gripping the wheel, staring at the house in the rearview mirror, watching, waiting, almost like I'm expecting the door to open on its own and something or someone to step out. But nothing did. Not that night. Not while I was looking. At sunrise, I left. I didn't pack. I didn't turn off the lights. I just drove. I told myself I wasn't coming back. I told myself I didn't need to. The house wasn't mine anymore. It never had been. It belonged to whatever was behind that door. And I wasn't about to find out what it wanted. But leaving didn't help. Because whatever I had let out, it came with me. It started small. My bedroom door, just slightly open in the morning, when I was sure I had closed it the night before. Little noises at night, like something shifting just outside my room, like something waiting. At first I thought it was in my head. I kept telling myself that, over and over, until I saw the photo. It was a few days later. I was at my mom's house. She had been going through Grandpa's old belongings, sorting through pictures, letters, little things she wanted to keep. I wasn't paying attention. I didn't want to pay attention until she held up a photo. It was my grandpa. Same old serious look, same tired eyes, but my stomach dropped the second I saw it. Because I knew this photo. I had seen it before, years ago. But something was different now. Something that hadn't been there before. A shape, faint, dark, standing just behind him. Just like the ones in the room. Just like the ones in all the other pictures. But this time, my grandpa wasn't alone. This time, I was in the picture too, standing right next to him. And right behind me was the shadow. I whispered to myself, I never took that picture. I had never even seen it before. How did I get to be in the picture? If that photo was taken years ago, before I was even born, how was I in it? This is a question I asked myself. It kept lingering in my mind and it made me terrified the more.